Hi, everyone. I'm Stan Mallow, the Paranormal Yacker. My guest on today's show is Mike Stevens, founder of Granite Sky Services, a company whose mission is to provide support to experiencers of extraterrestrial encounters, contact, and abduction. Mike Stevens, welcome to Paranormal Yacker.
Well, thank you for having me.
You, Mike, are an experiencer yourself, having had your first encounter with ETs at a very young age. Could you tell me about that encounter, where it happened, the circumstances surrounding it? What exactly did you experience and how did you react to it?
Sure. I was about 3 years old, 3.5. We were at my grandmother's house in Southampton, New Hampshire, which is really close to the Massachusetts border. And there's some type of family gathering going on, like all the extended family was there, aunts, uncles, and all that sort of thing. And the way my grandmother's house was set up, you'd come in through the kitchen, and then there was a dining room, and off the dining room, there was a three-season porch that overlooked the backyard. When I walked by that three-season porch, all of a sudden, I just had this like internal calling urge to get outside. I don't remember how I got outside, but I found myself standing in the driveway, and my cousin, who's a couple months older than I am, was already standing out there. And the fact that both of us got out there at that age, that's weird in itself because we were watched like hawks. But so anyways, we're standing out there in the driveway, and the next thing we know, behind my grandmother's lawn, there's a tree line and woods. And in those trees, you started to see this red glowing light. And it almost looked like there was a fire back there in the woods because all you could see was the outline of the trees and just this bright red light. The light started to move upward. And when it finally broke the tree line to the top of this tree, that's when we could see that there was this craft. And it was kind of your typical saucer shape. From there, it like effortlessly and noiselessly, there was no like jerky motion or propulsion type thing. It moved from there to the end of the driveway and parked itself next to this big tree my grandmother used to have at the end of her driveway. And it was there that we got our first like kind of good look at it. But it was probably 40 feet wide, kind of this chromy silver, stereotypical saucer shaped object. It had a ring of lights around the middle. It wasn't like individual bulbs. It was more like a liquid flow of color that just kind of streamed around. It was a lot of like soft whites and maybe blues, things like that. And we sat there and it sat there for a bit, and it really felt like something was watching us. Then that light bar I was talking about, it started changing colors and started changing colors more rapidly. A lot of more reds, oranges, and began flashing. And when that happened, almost like when you open your car door at night or something, some type of interior light came on this thing and revealed a row of windows just above that light bar. When that happened, we could see two humanoid shadows, just head and maybe some shoulders. No features, just you could see a shadow of something there. Then there was a big blank in my memory. And the next thing I remember, this object was at the other end of the driveway on the roadside. It was sat up above a telephone pole. And then the next thing you know, it just shot off and disappeared into a second. And that was my first encounter.
Did you share your ET experience, which you had at such a tender and vulnerable age, with your parents or siblings?
Not so much at that time. Me and my cousin always grew up we didn't really talk about it, but we would be like, hey, do you remember that UFO we saw when we were kids? And kind of leave it at that. And everybody had known we would say that and that we thought, we had seen something, but it wasn't like discussed in that seriousness, like something happened. None of our parents or aunts, uncles, or anybody remembers us being gone or going outside or missing or anything like that. So it wasn't like fully discussed until much, much later in life.
Your experiences with extraterrestrials has been a continuum throughout your life and has come in a variety of forms and demeanor. Could you, Mike, tell me about some of those experiences?
Yeah, that was the first time that I remember, and I was about 3.5. The last major thing that happened was probably about a year ago. I was out camping and I was all set up for the night. I'd done all my camp stuff, chopped my wood, and was just sitting there by the fire having some relaxing time. And the next thing I know, found myself in the middle of the woods with no idea where I was or how I got there. So I saw a little stump up ahead. And I said, all right, I'm going to walk up to that and I'm going to sit down and try to clear my head and figure out what's going on. As I walked up to that stump to sit down, it kind of looked like it cleared out in front of me. And in this open cleared area there, I don't know what to call it, but I could see what looked like sheets of black glass, like 5 of them, just rows of it, about the size of like 2 pieces of plywood. And it kind of, it reflected a little light, but you couldn't see anything. And I didn't know what it was, but I knew I didn't want to go that way because of the area I was camping. And I knew should have been, if I was anywhere near where I started, should have been on a peninsula of land on this lake. And so I knew I had a pretty good chance that if I could just go somewhere, I could find the water, I could sleep against a tree and figure it out in the morning. So I ended up walking in the dark with no particular direction until I found the water and did manage to find the lake and made it back to camp. But yeah, that was the last major thing that happened. They apparently just kind of took me and dropped me off in the middle of nowhere.
How did your ET experiences and the ways people treated you, sometimes not too kindly, affect you mentally, physically, psychologically, emotionally, and in various other aspects of your life, including relationships?
One of the parts that a lot of people don't see when they hear about experiences or abductees, they're not just abductees when the actual event is happening. There is such an emotional and traumatic effect that just always stays with you. I had issues socially from a young age, the classic poster child for hiding behind my mother's leg. Relationships are hard because you're trying to deal with emotions and things that are happening that nobody else can see. And you're always processing something internally that that affects your actions and then leads to other things. So yeah, it affects even if the whole family's not involved with a ET type situation, it affects the whole family structure.
What methods, Mike, did you use to take control of your life and maintain your sanity?
I basically came pretty close to breaking down, which I think a lot of experiencers do, with the main struggle of trying to figure out, am I losing my mind or is this really happening? And sometimes there's that one trigger piece or something that leads back to something else triggers another memory where you just know it did happen. And once I got to that point and knew it was happening, I knew I had to kind of come to terms with it myself. But also with that, I knew how I was struggling. I knew that I basically grew up alone with it. And I didn't want anybody else to have to go through that.
When, Mike, did you realize there was a need for the services you offer at Granite Sky Services, the company you founded?
It was probably right around 2008 that I started putting everything together, feeling confident in myself that this needed to be done. And then a couple years later, probably by 2010, we started not so much with support group meetings, but just public open groups to talk about anything UFO related and that stuff. And as that went on, it was great. Get to meet people and see what people were thinking. But then it was still the need of people being helped wasn't being met yet. So that's when we kind of fine-tuned it into more of a support style system.
Could you, Mike, tell me what experiencer and abduction support services are offered by Granite Sky?
We try to do it as many ways as possible, but we offer personal one-on-one support, group support. The group support can be either private with people who are known, who have been through the one-on-ones and where they're at. Sometimes they're just public. Anybody can walk in off the street and join them. We do family support where not only will support the family if the whole family's experiencing something, but we'll also help them break the news to the family or, help support them through that opening up that this is happening to them. And I mean, pretty much anything under the sun. If we can think of a way to help somebody and find it, we will do it.
In your literature for Granite Sky Services, you state it's about people, not proof. Could you elaborate on that?
I kind of look at it like a burning building on fire with people trapped inside of it. So much of you followed you for so long. It's been nuts and bolts and everybody's looking for this proof. That's the building on fire. Our thought is, well, let's get the people out of the building first. Then we'll figure out what caused the fire. So many people need help dealing with these experiences. And there's not often a lot of physical proof. There's no way to prove it. And they shouldn't have to wait to get help until they can prove prove it. At the end of the day, even if somebody's lying, which I haven't encountered a lot of people who I feel aren't honest, if somebody's that desperate to talk to somebody 5 minutes, then they can still have my time. It's not about trying to prove anything. It's really about trying to get experiencers through the day. Sometimes the triggers that somebody who hasn't had these experience wouldn't even think about will pretty much ruin somebody's day. I know people who have tried to just walk through their kitchen and the light glimpsed off the lid of a crock pot just right, and it triggered a traumatic response because it reminded them of something else. And it's little things like that where we're not trying to go out and prove to the whole world that UFOs are real, this is real. If somebody else wants to do that, that's great. I'm not saying there's not a place for it, but it's more important for us to just make sure these people get through the day.
I think that's quite correct, and I compliment you for that. You're right. Everybody wants to say proof, 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 but people are true to themselves. Author Nomar Slevik wrote your biography, Granite Skies, A Disconcerted Journey Through the Unknown. I'm curious to know, Mike, if you found opening up and sharing your innermost feelings with Nomar to be cathartic.
It was an experience that I think took both of us by surprise. When we started, he approached me and said, "Can we write this book?" I think we both thought we were going to write the standard UFO book you see on the shelf. This is what happened to me. Here's the date. Here's what happened here. And it'd just be a list of that. And as we were talking back and forth, and we'd already had a pretty good talking relationship through other business things and events we had done together, we started going deeper and deeper. And then it was somewhere in the middle of the book or the writing process, it became less about UFOs and more about the human experience of dealing with the UFOs. And the UFO stuff is what keeps the pages turning, but it really ended up into the human experience where even Nomar opened up about himself into it. And it was this huge bonding experience for everybody involved, just the way everything worked out with the book. Yeah, it was scary at first because I told him we could do it, but then there was always still that fear, like, my mom's got to read this, my dad's got so there was always that things like that doubled with it. But at the end of the day, we just felt that getting the story out there would let somebody else read it and know they're not alone, and that they could reach out to either me or him for help.
Should viewers of Paranormal Yacker want to learn more about the services offered by Granite Sky, as well as buying a copy of your biography, how can they do that?
You can find us at granitesky.org. We're on Facebook. I'm just under Granite Skies. And from the website, there's ways to directly contact, send a message, email, links to the Facebook and all that sort of thing. And from there, you can also find copies to get Granite Skies.
Mike Stevens, I thank you for being my guest on Paranormal Yacker. I wish you continued success with Granite Sky Services.
Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. This is Stan Mallow, the Paranormal Yacker. I hope you enjoyed the interview you just watched so that you don't miss any of my upcoming shows, where each week you'll find me yakking with a different outstanding guest. Be sure to subscribe to my free YouTube channel. All you have to do is press the subscribe button on your screen.